And welcome to 10 Ton Potato, the podcast where we talk about actual productivity on the Office 365 stack. I'm Brad, I'm joined by my co-host Craig. We're the co-founders of Gtconsult, and we have a special guest today, Kyle Farr, security analyst at GT. Kyle's here to talk to us about Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And so if you're a beginner, an expert, a developer, or just a user, a potato lover or potato hater, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. This is 10 Ton Potato, and we're talking Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Craig, we are going to educate you.
Thank you for having me.
Without a doubt. I mean, as you guys know, I'm focused mostly on development and around that. So I've got a lot to learn today around security. So I'm excited to hear what Kyle
What do you
has
mean
to tell us.
you don't think about security when you're in development? Surely you should think about security all the
All
time.
the time, but that's why we've got the likes of Carl helping us and advising us on what we need to do. So yeah, and the thing is, we put all of our assets into Azure, into Microsoft. They're all well protected, aren't they?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Microsoft takes care of everything.
Excellent. So I'm assuming that Microsoft Defender for Endpoint takes
Yes.
care of everything, right? Excellent. So tell me, what is this? What
So
is
I'm
this
just going
thing
to
that
throw
we're
this up
talking
here.
about?
This is something when you Google best antivirus software for 2024, what you'll notice is Microsoft Defender is not even on the list. All right. So this is immediately for me. What? Why would we choose something that's not on the list? But then, if you go, you find this rating over here, which is Bitdefender versus Microsoft. It's 4.4 stars with 1,442 reviews, so tons of people are using it. And then 4.6 for Bitdefender, which was the winner in the best antivirus space. I'm confused immediately, right? So, and this comes down to what ships with Windows is not what we're talking about today, right?
Yeah, good old Microsoft naming, right?
So Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is not the Microsoft Defender that ships with Windows. They're two different things. Like they're related, but they're not the same.
So we're talking the equivalent here of OneDrive versus OneDrive for Business, all being completely separate things, right? So same confusion here with the Microsoft Defender.
I think we have to put that out there straight away. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is not the same as Microsoft Defender by itself. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint you actually have to purchase, and you have to run it out with Intune and Office 365. Right, Carl?
That is correct.
So, I mean, is it just another antivirus? Is it exactly the same as Defender with some other features? What is this thing that's Microsoft Defender for Endpoint?
Well, it's so much better. It is an antivirus if you want it to be an antivirus, but it has so much more in terms of monitoring, managing, picking up vulnerabilities.
Okay, so this is straight from the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint website, and this is the important part. Applies to Defender for Endpoint Plan 1, Defender for Endpoint Plan 2, Defender Vulnerability Management, and Defender XDR. So once again, the Microsoft licensing wizards have gotten involved, and the accountants have said, well, this must be this much money, and this must be this much money. And here we have 75 plans to choose from. But yeah, I think if we have a look at this specific area over here, this is the core Defender vulnerability management, the attack surface reduction, the next generation protection, endpoint detection and response, automated investigation remediation, and then Microsoft Threat Experts, where you can actually, this is Craig's favorite thing, plug into Microsoft SOC, and their experts will identify what's going on, which is pretty crazy considering that. What did it say here? Uh, Defender for Endpoint customers need to apply for the Microsoft Threat Experts Managed Threat Hunting Service to get proactive target attack notifications to collaborate with experts on demand. Like that's crazy. And you can start in 90 days.
So what I'm picking up here,
Like that's I think it's cool. Anyway, yeah.
yeah. So what I'm picking up here, so I get my beautiful new Microsoft Surface. It's got Windows Defender on it, and that defends me. But this endpoint protection seems to be more based around your enterprise, where you are defending all of the devices that sit within your enterprise. Would that be correct? So that they're all standard, and you're lowering your total risk across the entire enterprise.
Yeah, definitely. And the visibility into that is all tied into a platform that you're already using. I think it just makes things so much easier, and it works just as good, if not better, than other antiviruses or security platforms.
Okay, and I suppose when you look at the risks that we're seeing in the market at the moment, a lot of companies being held up with for ransomware, etc., having to fork out money to get their systems back. This becomes all more important for your enterprise. So I think in this case, for me, that makes a lot more sense if you proactively monitoring all of the endpoints as opposed to just worrying about your own individual device. I mean, worrying about your own individual device is always important, but there are other things, right? There are other parts of your network, things like routers, Wi-Fi, whatever. I'm not an infrastructure person, as you know. So maybe just tell us what other things this is monitoring. What is it keeping safe?
Absolutely everything. You can go down straight all the way to users' cell phones, iOS and Android. It can check out your any sort of IoT devices that are on your network, and
Yeah, it
it
does.
can look at what firewalls, network appliances you have in place.
Yeah, it does the asset discovery, right? Which so essentially you roll this out, and each one of the endpoints become a little scanning tool to identify other things on the network. And so I like that because I deployed it in my house, and I've got a ton of IoT devices, and straight away it started telling me about the risk of those IoT devices that had 0 day
Yes, that's a
attack.
bit more than just asset.
And so your immediate
A little bit
asset
more than just
discovery is
asset
there.
discovery.
So it's like having a vulnerability
Yeah.
assessment on demand all day, every day.
Okay, which is pretty cool. I mean, for I can see this for smaller organizations where you've got a lot more control of what people are using, devices, etc. What in practicality, how does that work for a larger organization? Let's say we've got 50,000 or even 3,000 employees. They're all coming into work, they're accessing their email, their Teams, everything on their mobile devices, potentially also they've got tablets or whatever it might be. And those change on a regular basis. People have upgrades on their devices. They are in contracts where they get new devices on a regular basis. So how does this work in practicality in terms of rolling that out to your entire team to making sure that your environment is secure? I mean, does that asset tracking tool pick up all of those devices as they come on, or how does that work?
The asset tracking, yes, it'll pick up network devices, but that's not what gets you enrolled. Um, your network policies will, if you are installing new machines, Windows machines, then you'll roll out group policies to get everything enrolled. If you're talking about cell phones, they need to be added to Microsoft Intune before they will be enrolled in the management and security sort of feature of the endpoint protection.
Okay, so there is still some setup required in terms of policies and the like to make sure that everything is correctly set up. And I'm sure there's probably exceptions that you can make to certain rules because of policies, and only secure the things that are absolutely required.
Absolutely. And if you want to go full tilt, you can also ensure that devices won't be able to access your corporate data and information unless they are already enrolled, just for that extra layer of security.
Okay. Brad, you brought up an interesting screen there. Can we take another look at that? Because I noticed a couple of things there that I thought were quite interesting around things like the operating systems. And I noticed something called an exposure score.
You find that interesting?
I find it interesting. Whenever I see data, I always want to know what the underlying information
I
is.
thought you said
But especially around that, I obviously gauge from that the browsers and the operating systems that it's picking up, like your phones with iOS, etc. But now you've also got that exposure score, which is obviously talking towards what is wrong within or right within your organization. Now, in Microsoft 365, what I'm obviously very aware of is the secure score, where it basically monitors how secure your Microsoft 365 environment is, and it gives you remediations, things like making sure MFA is set up and making sure there are a whole bunch of compliance governance rules in place around accessing systems. How does that differ to what's shown here in terms of
First of
exposure
all,
score?
as a developer, I am surprised at your knowledge around the Microsoft 365 Secure Score. It's almost as if you've heard it before and then just repeated it to me as if I've never heard it before. Do you know what I mean?
Unfortunately, I know enough to be dangerous. I do dig around a bit, but
But
yes,
the
you're
exposure
completely right.
score is different to the secure score. And the exposure score, unlike the secure score is more baseline. Here are 355 things you can do to harden your network. The exposure score is we've scanned your devices, and these are the immediate vulnerabilities that exist, and this is your current exposure and risk. And so this is actually, I believe, a little bit more important than the secure score, because if your exposure score is 100, that means you're probably actively being hacked. You know what I mean?
Okay, so that, but it's like two sides of the coin. One is making sure that you're in the place so that you don't get hacked. This one's actually showing you the bigger threats around being hacked, which I think is extremely important. I also saw the button there, improve your score. So I'm assuming there's a whole bunch of remediation that it
Yeah, so it's
automatically
just going to
asks you
send you to a list
for,
of
or asks
all
you
the
to do.
devices it scanned. Um, and just like getting a good network scanner, it's going to bring back the version of software that's running, well, and then go, hey, we know that there's a CVE related to this, so you need to upgrade that. So I remember running it on mine, and what I quite liked was there were certain versions of Notepad that were outdated, and that it said that there was a vulnerability on that. And I was like, Notepad. Every time you open that up, it goes, would you like to upgrade? Every single time. And sometimes when you go no, then this goes, you should have done this because no, somebody found a weird way to exploit it, and it can take over your computer. So I spent a day updating all my outdated software, because those are used for local privilege escalation in most situations, right?
And Notepad++ is extremely
Well,
important for
have you
that.
noticed that
Especially
you,
for a developer.
the new Notepad, Windows one, they've tried to mimic Notepad++. So you get tabs now in Notepad. Anyway, that's a tangent. But
Yeah. But either way, Visual Studio Code, here we go. Drink that Microsoft Kool-Aid. Um, so what I'm seeing here, you've got your devices, you come in, you having them protected, etc. There needs to be some kind of sweet spot, right? You can't protect absolutely everything. Maybe you can, maybe you turn absolutely everything off unless absolutely required, and then you just deal with calls coming into IT to open things up because you can't actually do your work. So how do you physically decide on what devices to include and what kind of policies to put out there? I mean, what are the kind of best rules around that, or what gotchas do you get when you actually
Well, I
install
think
this?
before we get into the gotchas, what's important is we're going to talk about the big G, uh, governance. So, what does your organization provide you in terms of devices? If your organization provides you with a laptop that you run around with, and it's company laptop, then you should have a baseline for that laptop to be protected, for it to be encrypted, for it to be remotely managed, so that at any point in time, if it disappears, you lose it, or someone steals it, you can wipe that machine and make sure that it always has to have some kind of biometric login. If you have your own phone and you're joining a company, and they go, look, if you want to, you can add your mail and Teams on here, so you can be in constant communication. You can wrap those in a baseline where you say that this device itself is not protected, but the apps on it are. So Outlook and Teams are protected. Therefore, if you load them up, it does have to go through a biometric login. It does need to do some kind of multi-factor in that space. And if the device is lost, stolen, you can wipe Teams and Outlook from the device, but everything else on the system should on the device should be okay. Or you can go full tilt and be like, lock down the device so that it can only have Outlook and Teams on it, can have nothing else. You can't browse on it. You can't do anything else on it. And if the device is stolen or lost, nuke it. So completely, like, it just does a factory reset and deletes absolutely everything. I think that comes down to governance, but it is something that can be done from Intune deployment and then the endpoint protection management on baseline. So that's, I think that puts a lot of calm in managing a lot of users when you can say, this is the baseline protection management for Mac OS, for Windows, for Linux, for iOS, Android. I think there was once BlackBerry. I swear I saw it, but I double checked again. But yeah, you kind of create these baselines and roll them out per device, and then you aim for away because that's your company policy. That's what you're going to be doing. And then when a threat does show up, it immediately checks the baseline and goes, is this threat reasoned? Yes, it is. Okay, notify the security team or the support team or the engineers, and they can take it from there. And it's one place kind of management, which is great. The big thing is, I don't know if you've seen the list when creating a baseline. It is perilously long. And so there's this great site. Let me just share it with you now. A number of people have spoken about. Jeffrey Apple, also MVP on the security side of things. He's made a number of blogs, and he chats a lot about the defender side of things. He's got specific information about filling in those baselines. And so you can start, it's easier to start with one of his and modify it than starting from scratch usually. I suppose the bigger you are, the more people you have in your team. But if you're managing a smaller organization, to create a baseline, you want to be able to use some experience. And the other thing I found was sometimes the baseline questions are quite vague, or not the questions, but the options are quite vague. And so you'll be like, is this important or not? And then you have to go Google it or Bing it or OpenAI it or whatever. And it takes you some time to figure out that resource kind of has all of that. So I like that. And so, yeah, with that, Craig, did that answer your question or did I completely miss?
Yeah, most certainly. I think that gives us a good idea as to what you're going to be deploying this to. But you bring up an interesting point there where you talked about having a large team managing this or a small team. I mean, who is this actually aimed at? And what sort of size of company? How does the licensing work to manage this endpoint protection?
Well, it's fairly clear from Microsoft. Less than 300 seats, you can do Microsoft Defender for Endpoint P1 or Microsoft Defender for Endpoint P2. P1 is the watered down version. It only has cross-platform on macOS, iOS, and Android, attack surface reduction, next generation protection, and centralized managed and partner APIs, which is quite a lot if you think about it. But P2 has all of that plus the threat and vulnerability management. And I think you want that threat and vulnerability management. It's got endpoint detection and response, which is, again, found something, let you know about it immediately. It's got automated investigation and remediation. This is what we found running. This is what we did about it. This is what we're going to do to sort it out in the future. It's got threat analytics. This is what we found. This is what it looks like. This is where we think it comes from. It's got threat hunting with 6 months of data retention. So if you were breached and you want to find out when it was, up to 6 months, pretty good. And you have access to the Microsoft Threat Experts. Essentially, that's P1 and P2. If you have more than 300 users, straight away you've got to use Defender for Business. They don't even allow you to go P1 or P2. You have to go straight to Defender for Business. But Defender for Business has everything except for threat hunting with 6 months of data retention and Microsoft Threat Experts. But I don't understand that exactly, because that's when you need the experts. When you've got more than 300 seats. The guys with less than 300 seats, they like phone up the experts, help. And they're like, all right, what's happened? And you're like, well, my mom was hacked, and then they're like, we're going to help you because you have less than 300 people. The people that are like, 301. Hi, our organization is under attack, Microsoft Threat Expert. Yeah, but 301, bro. You won over. I don't understand.
Have you turned it
They
off
just
and on
like
again?
go straight to the network cabinet with an axe and destroy it. I think, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that.
Do you think that's just because it's too complex, or it seems
I don't know.
very weird?
That's straight from the Microsoft side.
Honestly, it just seems like one of those things where, you're a big company, so you can still apply to have threat hunting and 6 months data retention if you want to pay an extra separate subscription.
I think you've nailed it there. I think it's more money, eh?
Yeah.
Probably more money. So yeah, that's it. And you're looking at, I think it's the same across the board, right? So for P2 and business, I think it's, what is it, $5, and then P1 is $3, something like that. It's not incredibly expensive for what you get. Put it that way. And each license covers 5 devices, so you can put it on a phone, laptop, PC. Any 5 different devices. Not many people have more than 5 devices. And the way that it works when you deploy it, it actually monitors other devices without even being deployed on them. So like my cameras at home or my light switches, straight away it was like, these are outdated Tasmoda, which has vulnerability. And it was like, oh my, okay. Not that they're connected to the internet, but they are on the local network. So for lateral movement, if someone did manage to get themselves on my network, they could have deployed something dodgy in my light switches, which could then obviously be used later. But that's how they hacked that Vegas casino. They
Oh yeah, yeah,
They hacked the aquarium camera, and it was next to the roulette table. And then because they could work out how fast it was spinning and where the ball was, they could get a good accuracy within 90%. So you would say 16 neighbors, and you 90% of the time they'd win. And so they were just telling them on the floor when to do it. But the pit bosses were like, obviously, no one wins at roulette this much. And eventually they got the information. They hacked the camera at the casino and then put a live feed into an analytics machine to give them answers. So, yeah, tangent.
So the less intelligent your devices are in your organization, the less likely it is for you to be hacked, I think is what you're saying. No more
So
Wi-Fi globes.
I don't know about that. The less
Um,
intelligent a smart device is, the more probability that you're going to be hacked. Um, I think there's no way around it. There are more IoT devices and more smart devices in our network all the time.
Yeah, so you need to secure them. So this is now integrating with all. What about other Microsoft products? Where does this fit in with any of your other? Because you mentioned a number of different Defender options, but I'm sure there are
Well,
more
you'll be
places
glad to
that this
know,
fits
Craig.
into your
It
Microsoft stack.
integrates with Skype for Business.
Excellent, because everyone's still using that. I've got our Edge server sitting behind. No, I don't. Who's still
Yes,
using
yes.
Skype for Business? Is that even a
Well, it
thing?
integrates with Skype for Business, so you know it must be a thing. But obviously, what was the other ones that it does? Yeah, the one that I don't know is the Microsoft Defender for Office. Um, uh, Carl, do you know what that is? What's the difference between Defender for Office?
honestly, no.
Yep.
It already tells you if your like Office is insecure. But yes, Office Online, that's a different story.
But remember back in the day, you used to have there was a antivirus for SharePoint specifically. Remember one of our clients had it.
Yeah,
And I'm wondering if this is an antivirus specifically for the Office kind of side of things, where it won't protect you from what happens on Windows, but it will actually just protect the software itself. I don't know. We need to look into that one. Um, but then obviously
definitely.
the big thing here is for me, it can plug into Sentinel, right? And so Sentinel is your uh, extended security operations center on Azure. Um, and so once you start plugging it into Sentinel, it just takes it to another level. It does integrate with Intune, so being able to deploy it uh, across the organization, easy peasy. And then Microsoft Defender for Identity. And so obviously it already integrates with Intra, but or AD for those of you who've just figured that out. Um, but for identity, it's other authentication methods on your platform. So not everything goes through AD, obviously. And if you've put together an authentication or identity management system, it can be plugged into that. You've got Defender for Cloud, so all of your cloud applications that are running. So it can also do centralization of administration of APIs. So if you want to point it to an API and say go for it, it's pretty much covers a lot of what day-to-day businesses require. I mean, I was reading a lot in the comments, and this is a very polarizing subject because people love what they've got. And as soon as they hear about Microsoft Defender, they either go, yep, great, does everything I need, or it turns them into this absolute devil of a person that goes, never will I ever use it. I have my XYZ insert loved product here, and it kicks its ass. So, um, yeah, different horses for different courses. But from our experience, it,
Do,
it does what it needs to do.
do you think a lot of that has to do with the naming? because Microsoft Defender comes with your Windows operating system, and people like,
No, look, I mean the
they just
security
think, oh
side of
well,
things, the guys are pretty smart and pretty jacked up, and they do their research on it. I think it's because Microsoft over the last 10 years has really thrown a lot of effort into creating a secure platform that was much better than what it was before. But no matter what no matter what you do, you've got people that are on macOS and Linux that are going to shred it. You know, your biggest malware kind of space in the world is still Windows. There's not as much on Linux and macOS. But then in contrast, Android is the biggest malware and spyware kind of platform versus macOS, which is not that bad. So I think it's a fanboy type of thing. We're in this space, and so that's the deal. And we're forced to use Windows, which is rubbish because I know how to use a terminal and I don't need a GUI, and I don't know. It's strange.
got you. I just wish they'd gone with Microsoft Sentinel. Every time you say it, I see a picture of Keanu Reeves dodging bullets, but that's just me.
When you go down naming conventions, Microsoft Sentinel, that's the one I think they've got right. Everything else they've pretty much not got right. I mean, even naming conventions.
No,
What happened to Windows 9? Somebody tell me what happened to Windows 9.
apparently they don't like
Went from 7 to Vista.
What happened to SharePoint 2024 or 2023? They just went, nope, it's premium now. Do you know what I mean? Like Microsoft naming convention
gave up.
is one of those places that is a quantum black hole of let's see what we throw in, what happens coming out. Like it doesn't make sense. Schrodinger's naming convention can be 9 or can be 10 at the same time. I don't know. Why wouldn't they just name this Defender for Business? Not Defender for Business. A new cool name. You get Defender on your computer, and then you get insert name.
Microsoft
Sentinel's
Sentinel.
already taken. You get like Phoenix or something, and then people will be like, "Yes, I want Phoenix for business." I don't know. So what else you want to know? Are you fully educated on how this works?
The last thing I want to know about is the XDR. So this tool that now defends you just natively, etc. Just take me through a little bit of that, because the first thing I think about is I'm being hacked. Pull out the wires, turn everything off. Probably not an approach for a large enterprise.
It's always an approach. There's always that should be something, pull wires here once this happens. But an XDR is essentially a unified pre and post breach enterprise defense suite. So it lets you know that you're being hacked, and then it tells you afterwards that you were hacked.
Okay, so clearly based on any of the shows that I've watched, the FBI don't use XDR because they always pull the wires. So maybe we've got a market there.
The nice thing with XDR is obviously it shows you what's happening, shows you how things are happening. It gives you a feedback on active attacks and what attackers are trying to do to the organization, and then you can put in a number of steps to say, look, if this is happening, then we've already been compromised at this level. We need to isolate this section and lock that in, and then identify what's next, right? So it takes us through the MITRE steps and goes, look, you've been breached because at this point now we can see someone's on the network that shouldn't be, and so their next movement is lateral. Your next movement should be to cut that off. So I mean that's that next level stuff. And if you've got a nice little team internally, and the XDR gets alerted and kick off, straight away you can be like, all right, guys, what's the plan? It's already here. let's go. This is what we're going to do. This is what we've trained for.
Yeah.
Let's go time. And I think any organization that takes security seriously and can be financially in ruins if certain data gets out there should have that XDR and that team to manage it. Because it's not, whilst it's automated, automation is tricky because what then if is tricky. You've been breached, shut everything down. Okay. So then it just automatically shut down. And you're like, all right, run for your lives. And it's like, wait. It was just the new user forgot to do X, Y, and Z and thought it was a breach, but we're good. And then it's like, yeah, but the drives have, self-destructed.
Being wife.
So, yeah, you've got to. It's a little bit more complex. And let me show you something. Share the screen. The problem I always forget is it's important to share the screen, but this is a podcast. So, sharing the screen, all the people that are listening whilst
Helps to share the
on
right
the
mindset.
road are like, I can't see anything. But we'll put the links in the description. But I mean, this is the main little bit that I was talking about. You can have a look at what's happening, and you can then see, okay, this is what actually occurred, and how it occurred, and what your next steps are. I mean, I love it. Email was delivered, but it recognized as a threat, so it said, "All right, it tried to get access, and we discarded it." Next one is, there's an XSS alert here, and it's been exploited, and the severity is high, and so we might have a problem. Um, and this is where it starts to get crazy, where you can start to actually hunt for specific actions that happened on the network. So you can see that it can check to see if that email then managed to get activity on the network with that account. Then you can be like, yep, that phishing email worked on the network, and therefore these people are now in. And so I really like the idea of this extended threat hunting. I think, again, any organization that takes their security really as a high priority, it's a must-have.
Yeah, I can imagine with that 6 months, because sometimes people don't know that they've been hacked. They're happily working away, and their information's being siphoned off, etc. And I think with what you pointed out earlier is extremely important, with all of the likes of GDPR, POPI, DORA, all of these governance compliance frameworks coming into place. Losing information is a costly exercise. So yeah, okay, I'm sold. I see the need. But now, Kyle, you've deployed this internally at GT. You've deployed it at clients. What has the experience been? What are some of the learning curves that you've gone through here, just in terms of those deployments, in terms of things that you have to look out for, etc.?
Honestly, it's been really fantastic, especially for your average, support engineer that's going to be deploying things for your company. They've made it really straightforward, where directly from the admin panel, there's a section that gives you everything you need to start the enrollment process. They will generate scripts for you that you can then go and use in your Active Directory policies, group policies on your network, or in other baselines, or in Intune, to automatically start rolling Defender out to all of your machines. One thing I can say is a lot of smaller companies might have a third party that manages their network and might be blocking certain things. I know a lot of companies like to block the Microsoft updates and only supply updates through their own internal WSUS servers. And in those situations, we find that the Defender client wasn't able to actually sync up back to the cloud and say, "Hey, I'm active." So the enrollment process never happened, and that all went tits up.
Oh, very good. Your antivirus is hacking you, so I'm going to stop it from working.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of an important thing straight
yeah,
away. I think I remember seeing the guide and said make sure that you kind of uh, green flag the following activity because it will get stopped and things will break.
yeah. Thankfully, there
Okay,
is.
so I think important learning lesson
Yeah,
there.
thankfully, once you know that this is the issue, there is a list of endpoints that Microsoft has that you can provide to the guys and say, "Hey, these endpoints need to be open so that we can have our protection, please."
I like
And
it.
then it works after
Right.
that.
And you can also do if you've got the E3 plan, you can do a 90-day trial, which is quite cool. Or is it a 6 month trial?
That's right.
Yeah.
For the threat management, it's 3 month trial. Yeah, for the threat management, which is really awesome. You get a feel of what it all can do for you. You can have it running in passive mode while you're trialing it out if you're already on another antivirus system. So that your antivirus carries on working, but you still get all the benefits of
Oh
defenders
no!
monitoring, telling
You know
you
what happened to
what
Carl?
software's got vulnerabilities, all of the
Got
goodness.
hacked.
Well, the good thing from our side is we're using the podcast, so you might have gone uh, dodgy there, but don't close your browser; it will upload at the end, so it will be fine. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Brad. I'm feeling enlightened around what needs to be done, and yeah, very very interesting, especially in the today's world where these risks are more and more
Yeah,
common.
you know what I really like about this
Thanks,
product
guys.
is it's a step closer to managing all the devices and securing the entire network. One of the things that we've done at GT for years is vulnerability assessments of our customers. Um, I've got my little hacker shirt on. Funny story about this shirt. One of our customers had moved to a new office. I put this shirt on. They were bragging about how I wouldn't be able to get in through the front doors without a secure card. I was wearing this shirt, this exact shirt, and I had a clipboard. Um, and went straight to the front desk and I said, I'm here to check the following systems. And they said, oh, no, of course, yes, of course, and took me straight through the security. And I went into his office and he went, how did you get in? And I was like, I've got a clipboard and a shirt that says hacker. And he was like, I can't believe it. Anyway, the vulnerability assessments that we do is one, it's a one off. And the idea behind it was you have to get them done so that you can make sure that your network's secure. But the day after we've done that and we've given you all the information and we've delivered the report, the day after that, a new 0 day vulnerability could drop, and everything we've done is now, it's not null and void, but it's no longer 100%. There's something else that you have to fix, and then you could go 365 days until we see that. And so this kind of helps organizations see vulnerabilities that are out there any day. And I think this is a better way to go. Rather deploy this, get this rolled out, and then get a team to manage the alerts and the XDRs, and live in that space to manage it. Either you can get a team like us, of course, or you can build a team internally. But I think this is a much better approach to long-term sustainability in the security kind of world. But yes, guys, I think from a 10-ton potato perspective, is this a gimmick or does it provide actual productivity? I mean, this is all the way 100% actual productivity, slam dunk. How were you doing it before? Obviously, third party or not at all. Um, and so, yeah, exceptionally happy that this is out there, that it's working well. Really great product. I just wish the licensing and the naming convention was a little bit more slick. But I mean, might get away with the naming conventions, licensing with Microsoft. It's always a rabbit hole, but it's still very affordable for what it is, and the protection it provides, and the insight, everything. So, yeah, all good from my side. Anything on your side?
Cool. I'm going to sleep better tonight. Thank you.
Hey, as well.
Next to your stop business server.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks for joining
Thanks
us.
for having me, guys.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Go enjoy reducing attack surfaces.
I shall.
Thank you, guys.
Peace in the Middle East.
We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us. In Time Potato.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you later.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.